Allô, TV1, en France?
Professor Freud, sono il dottor Jung.
Io ho soltanto aperto una porta. Spetta ai giovani come lei attraversarla.
È la persona che cercavi per il tuo trattamento sperimentale?
Mi parli della prima volta in cui è stata picchiata da suo padre.
Mi piaceva.
It's been a couple of years since I first read Christopher Hampton's play, which was called The Talking Cure, which referred to the Freudian analysis, the technique of Freudian analysis, and I thought it suddenly occurred to me then that I probably have been wanting to make a movie about Freud somehow all my life, really, all my movie life, but never found the structure, the dramatic structure that would make it work, because you can't say, let's make a movie about Freud, because he was in his 80s when he died. He had a very long and complex career. That isn't a dramatic structure. So, but A Dangerous Method is based on a play by Christopher Hampton, which presented a triangle, a very interesting, it's almost like a menage a trois, an intellectual menage a trois, you know, between Freud and Jung, between whom there was love, definitely love. It was more than a friendship. It was very intense and very intimate. And Sabina Spielrein, who was a patient of Jung's, who then had an affair with him and then studied to be an analyst herself with Freud. And so there's this strange triangle, and that gave that I could see immediately that was a wonderful dramatic structure from which I could then explore not just the life of Freud, but also Jung, and the era, that is to say, the beginning of the 20th century, the early 1900s, which in Vienna, which in the middle of Europe, was an incredibly interesting, intense time.
E come sta la sua piccola paziente rossa?
C'è stato un miglioramento straordinario.
La ragazza è vergine?
Sicuramente.
Se mai vorrà prendere l'iniziativa, io abito in quel palazzo.
What was wonderful about all of these characters, and there were 4 or 5 of them actually, not just those 3 in the movie, is that they were incredibly articulate, they wrote beautifully, they spoke incredibly well, with great passion about very abstract intellectual concepts. And there was a sexual thread that went through everything that they talked about, in particular because Freud's theory was based on sexuality, which became a problem for Carl Jung eventually. But so that's a very potent mixture of things, that is a mixture of intellect and emotion, and each character had to deal with how to mix those things together. Because they were very different personalities. Sabina was Russian Jewish. She was very passionate, very obsessive, very forceful. Carl Jung was Swiss German. He was very restrained, very controlled, very repressed. And Freud, the Viennese Jew, was sort of in the middle of those two, you know, in terms of his temperament.
Contradiction, passions, breakups, violence. How did you manage to put all these elements and make them meaningful in this movie?
Well, the script that Christopher Hampton wrote was really quite a beautiful script, because it's a very complex era, the birth of psychoanalysis. There are many incredibly eccentric and interesting characters involved in the beginning of psychoanalysis. In Freud's circle, in Jung's circle, and so on, and to filter that out and to find a way to structure everything, that was really Christopher's script. You know, that's he's a brilliant playwright, but also a wonderful screenwriter, and that's the art, is to sort of compress all of those things and down to 4 or 5 main characters, and still give the feeling of the whole epic era of the birth of psychoanalysis.
Perché tanti affannosi sforzi per soffocare i nostri più elementari istinti naturali?
For any independent film, which is not getting mass releases all over the world by some major Hollywood studio, let's say, a presence at a film festival like Venice, which is one of the 3 or 4 top film festivals in the world, and I think it is the oldest film festival in the world, is incredibly important. Because you need a platform to launch your movie, and in Venice, everybody comes from all over the world to see your movie, and especially if it's in competition. The spotlight is suddenly on your film, and there's a lot of excitement involved. Of course, it can backfire on you. If people hate your film, then everybody all over the world knows that people hate your film. So it's a gamble, of course, but you have to take it. When you make a film, of course, you're making it for an audience. So eventually, you have to show it to people, and Venice is a fantastic place to do that.